Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Big Bold You, a show that is dedicated to inspiring every person out there. And yes, we do mean you to play bigger in your life. And what we tell you all the time is, I promise you, is it is so much easier to play bigger in your life than you think. We want to inspire you to be bolder, which means you are going to have to step out of your comfort zones, do things that are a little bit uncomfortable that you think you can't do, but you really can, so you can become the best version of you. Now, the reason we do that is because we live in a world where there is a war between good and evil. And the only way evil wins is when good people don't do enough. So we are here to inspire you to do more and to become the best version of you. Now, we do that every week by having some inspirational and educational topics and incredible guests. And we are in for a treat this week. Our special guest today is Bethany Williams, who is a business executive. She is an author, a speaker, and all around incredible person. Here's her website. She's got her husband with her, and I can't wait to just jump into our topic. But before we do, let's welcome Bethany Williams. Hello, Bethany.
Hello. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Well, you're amazing. I'm telling you, we
stop.
had so much fun. My husband and I went to dinner with you and your husband Vince on Friday, and I'm telling you, we left on cloud nine because what you write about in your book, you live. But before we get started about what is in your book, tell everybody a little bit about who you are.
I can say that I was born in Flint, Michigan.
And we won't hold that against you.
So yeah, don't hold that against me. I grew up in kind of a poverty mindset. I didn't believe there were much that I could do, many places I could go. And I developed this paycheck to paycheck mentality. And so we'll talk about that a little today as we talk about breaking out of kind of the chains that are binding you.
But, and you say that, and I think that's so important because I think most people, that's where they live. They live in that mindset of paycheck to paycheck. And when you're brought up in that environment, you don't even think that there's a different way.
You don't realize that you're in this chain. It is your norm, and it's the only norm that you know.
That's
and live there.
And you're happy when you just get that next paycheck. I mean, that's how you live your life. So you grew up. Do you have siblings?
I do. I have one brother. I have an older brother. He's 5 years older than me. So I grew up in Flint, Michigan, in kind of an interesting environment. And as my counselor years told me, I grew up with a broken picker. So I went through years and years of just relational turmoil as I just did not understand how I was made up. I didn't understand how to have self-esteem, how to select a mate. And I really just went through a very traumatic side on my relationship side.
And, and along that journey where I'm sure there were times that you thought, you know what? This is as good as life is going to get.
As good as it's going to get.
And I know you've been married a couple times, and that people don't realize that the stress and the mental anguish that comes along with your personal life. But you were extremely successful professionally.
Yeah. For some reason, that came a little easier. No, I was. When my first husband died, I was 28. I had 2 children, and when I realized that. I had to figure it out. Like literally the children needed food and they needed me to care for them. And I had to figure it out on my own. I kind of pushed myself into a different mode from the work perspective.
So you've got how many children?
I have 3 children.
You have 3 children.
I have 3 children. The traumatic part of my past is my first husband he actually deserted me when when my daughter was 3. And then he passed away in a motorcycle accident. I remarried and had a very traumatic, tumultuous kind of relationship. And we were divorced, and he passed away in a heart attack. Right. And so I was just kind of thinking, and then I was remarried. And it was just kind of like this. I literally sat back at one point and thought, could it get any worse?
Right. And I mean, and listen, every one of us can relate to that. Here's what I have done in my life. When things are just crazy and you say that, nothing, okay, it can't get any worse.
Can't get any worse.
But it can.
It can.
It can. And so I've learned to not say that. But sometimes, remember the show Candid Camera? Do you remember that? Sometimes I will think, is there a camera somewhere that's following me around to
Yep.
say, okay,
Yep.
let's do one more thing to Jen's and see if she cracks. Let's
She
just do
just
one.
totally breaks down.
She just breaks down. And I'm telling you, we all go through those times in our lives, but it takes a special person to realize, hold on a second, where I am right now doesn't define me, and it's not going to define my future. So at what point in your life that you had that, I call them those moments of truths, basically. At what point and what was the moment that you said, hold on a second, you were saying even with your first divorce or your husband passing away the first time, and you said, hold on, I have to be here for my kids. What was it that got you out of the corporate America grind, extremely successful on the path to being a CEO, to saying, hold on, stop, this isn't the best life I can live?
Yeah, so I really literally woke up one morning. I was traveling internationally. I had 3 children. I had a hectic schedule. I had a work permit in the UK, so I was running a team in the UK, and I was also running a team in several states in the US. And I laid there in bed, and I didn't want to get out of bed. And I just laid there like, oh my goodness, I'm incredibly successful from a work perspective. I was in line to be a general manager for the next business unit that we launched. I was on the CEO track. And from all accounts, I was married, I had kids, I had, if you went through all of these things from all kind of notes, it was like, I should be happy. I should be living this dream life. And I realized that it was like I was angry that morning. I realized it was like I was on a bus and it was going somewhere and I didn't like where it was going. And I woke up that morning mad at the bus driver that someone had driven me to this place in my life that I didn't want to be at. And I sat there and it suddenly dawned on me that I was the bus driver, that I had driven myself to every one of those jobs.
Right.
I had accepted those international positions. And the overwhelming part of I'm responsible for all this that I don't like.
Right.
Like no one told, I let people lead me to the path of least resistance.
Right. And you just said something that is, I think, one of the most important facts that we all have to learn, which is we are 100% responsible where we are.
Where we end up.
And so many times we don't like where we are. And I mean, I had a similar situation in my first marriage where it was the same thing. I woke up and I was mad because I didn't like where I was. But it wasn't until I did the same thing where I said, I'm where I am because of the decisions and choices that I've made. And if I want something different, I have to do something different. But that's scary. And you talk a lot. This is really, this book is incredible. It's Live Your Dreams, empowering you to live the life you've always imagined. I told Bethany just a few minutes ago, I said, it is such a fast, easy read that you literally can pick this up, get it on Amazon, read it within a day or two, easily start to implement the ideas that you have in this book. And within 30 days, you're going to start living a different life. And a lot of times you get books like this that are inspirational, but they're not written in such a way that you can immediately start to apply it. So tell us how you got to writing this book.
So it's funny because I've written all kinds of books. I've written 6 books in total.
What number is this book?
This is number, I think it might be number 4.
That's so interesting to me that this isn't
So-
where you started.
It's not where I started, not at all. I have a branding book called Brand You that sells internationally. It did well, and then I wrote a follow-up to it called CEO of You. And what I noticed was people were becoming more and more and more successful reading my books. People were getting the jobs they wanted, they were getting the pay raises they wanted. I was helping people negotiate, I was helping them climb the ladder. And when I had that kind of epiphany in my life that I was successful but not successful,
Right.
I suddenly thought there's probably other people in the same boat.
Right. You were successful, but you weren't fulfilled.
I wasn't fulfilled.
You were.
And it was that point that made me want to write Live Your Dreams.
Right. Because this is really, in my opinion, where you need to start. To me, there's 3 pillars of development: personal development, professional, and legacy development. And most people feel more comfortable starting in professional development because they think that's where you start.
Well, they think that's where all the answers
Yeah,
are. That's where all
exactly.
the answers
But
are.
this is really, in my opinion, where somebody needs to start, because it's that whole philosophy that I can live my life the way I want, and that is going to determine where I put my energies and efforts for your career.
And I think people don't realize you're going to experience more success if you're living a fulfilling life.
100%.
Even if it's a hobby, it doesn't matter what you do. If you're living a fulfilling life, you then apply that energy to your relationships, to your kids, to all aspects.
So one of the things that I think you do an exceptionally well job doing in this book is describing that phenomena of being stuck. How many of you out there say, I'm stuck, but you don't really understand what that means? You really do believe you are stuck, but you've got a really interesting perspective on that.
Well, I think we're stuck if we believe we're stuck. And, being broke and a single mom for years of my life, in my mind, the only reason people weren't living their dreams was because they didn't financially have the money. That's the only thing I could accept. And so I remember very clearly meeting with a very prominent CEO, and I was writing the book, so I was asking a lot of questions. And I said, tell me what you dream about, right? And he goes, oh my gosh, I dream of fly fishing.
And you're like,
And I said,
okay.
like for a year, like for 5 years, like I'm thinking in my mind, I know how much he makes, right? I've
Right.
read the annual reports. It's like $1 million plus. So I said, you mean like living on a farm and walking to the lake? And he's like, no, for a couple weeks. I said, you dream of fly fishing for a couple weeks, and you're running a multi-billion-dollar where you can just
Right.
say, I'm going on vacation, I'm going fly fishing. And he goes, yeah, Bethany, I don't think it's about not just wanting something. It's about taking the action step to
Yes.
plan it and then following through with it. And I left that meeting so perplexed.
Right. You're like, hold on a second. What does this mean?
I'm like, no one watch the Nike advertisements? I don't understand. Just do it.
But here's, I think, is a very important part, because what you said, and I think a lot of people, in fact, I think the majority of people think the same way, is, again, if you have the money, you're going to be happy. If you have the job, a big job, you're going to be happy. And in reality, that's not living your dreams. Because if you're, I don't want to say this, if you're pinned down,
Right.
and you're not able to do the things that you want to do, it doesn't matter what your job is.
Doesn't matter what you're doing.
And that was really, when you start the book, you're on a plane. She starts the book is she's on a plane and you're going somewhere fabulous. And you decided, I'm not going to wait until the end of my life to go on these phenomenal trips. I'm going to live my life right now. I'm going to go on these trips now. So was that after the interview with the CEO that you started to do that, or was that before, when you started to live your life that way?
It was after I started doing these interviews, I definitely started changing this mindset. And I came out of it with this concept of, what if our life is an adventure, an adventure to be lived out? And what if we're going through the motions and not realizing that we can make every day an adventure? And I talk about life-tastic moments.
Yes,
in
I
this
love
book.
that.
And I talk about the fact that we're so caught up on, I want to take a vacation and I'm going to do this, that we don't think, what if I just made a fantastic moment out of today?
Right.
What if I took, the kids out of school and went on a picnic? Or so this concept of living out loud was such a foreign concept to me. This concept of living purposefully really kind of blew my mind. And it was right when I was on that vacation that I read the 4-Hour Work Week.
Oh, right. I was going to say Tim Ferriss. This is exactly Tim Ferriss's concept, but to me, it's so much more. The way that you describe it is more achievable to
More
me.
practical, right?
A lot more practical, because sometimes and I love Tim Ferriss, but that 4-Hour Work Week book is this big.
It is, and it is thick.
It's this big, and then you get to a whole point where he's so involved in the business. But to me, this is very practical. Anybody can do this. And it really, so when did you start? How many years ago did you start living your life this way?
Probably not fully until I started. It's like turning the Titanic, right?
Exactly. It does.
I probably wrote that book in 2007. It probably took me 3 or 4 years to start turning the tide. It's a matter of faith, I think.
Right.
Is you have to believe that if you live your life out loud, if you take the vacations, if you do these things purposefully, then you have to trust that if I lose my job, then I didn't need that job.
Right, exactly.
If I lose these opportunities, then those weren't for me. If
Right.
a customer leaves and fires us because I'm on vacation, then we don't need that customer. And it is a very much an act of faith that says, I believe that I'm in my Creator's hands.
Right.
I'm going to do the right thing for my family. I'm going to do the right thing, enjoying my life. And if, as I'm doing that, I lose my job, I lose opportunities, then that was meant to be.
Right. And you talk about fear. You talk about things being scary. You talk about risk, but you have to do that. You have to push through the fear. You have to say exactly what you said. If it happens, it happens, and I'm going to be okay. Another thing you talk about in the book that I think is really important is that the journey takes time.
It takes time. We rush through, and it's funny because a lot of people watch football.
Right.
And in football, you're just trying to advance the ball a few yards at a time. And that's okay. Everyone watches a game every weekend for
Right.
hours and hours and hours, knowing that it's going to be a rarity that he grabs the ball and takes it all the way
That's
to the
right.
end zone in
Yes.
one play. But for some reason in our lives, we expect to grab the ball and go all the way to the end zone and it's going to be done. And we read People magazine and we're like, look, she lost 100 pounds in 3 months.
Yes. You're like, not normal.
So I decided that what if, and I was 70 pounds overweight when I had my
Epiphany.
when I had that epiphany that I was driving the bus. And I thought, what if it's not about these really long workouts at the gym? What if I just say, what if I walk a little bit, 10 minutes? What if I start with something that's so doable that I know I can do this and I continue to do it? I never plan to stop.
Right.
So it's just like an activity that I add in. And then what if I cut things out of my diet that I'm okay never putting back in my diet? Not an
Right.
extreme diet.
Exactly.
But what if I just stop pouring sugar into my coffee every morning?
Right.
Think how many calories that could be.
Exactly. Or just stop drinking sodas. I mean, just the little things.
Little things that I would stay for permanent. They were permanent. They weren't temporary. And I love being outdoors. I love hiking. And I thought, what if working out was a 2-hour hike every weekend when the weather was nice? So I slowly started changing my lifestyle. So it took me 3 years to lose the weight. It was a very slow, but it didn't feel like a diet.
No.
I was still eating things I loved. I was still going to restaurants. And it was sustainable. I've pretty much maintained it.
But you know what? everybody thinks you have to take a quantum leap. Everybody, in reality, it is the small little things that you do on a daily basis that get you from point A to point B. And I love the analogy about football because that's really what it is. You're just advancing,
Just trying to advance
just
the ball,
advance a
just
little bit. But most people, they think if I don't have an hour to work out, well, forget it. I'm not going to work out today. If I don't have $100 to save in a bank, I'm
Then
not
I'm
going
not
to
gonna
save
save
anything.
five. Right.
But it's really, you've heard of these stories of people that were janitors and they saved $1 million because they just did it a little bit at a time. And I think that's so important. One of the things I say all the time is success happens in decades. And if you just have the mindset of, listen, I'm not where I want to be right now. I'm not living the life that I want to live. And if this little book can help me, and it's a very easy read, okay, I'll read it. And then I'll start to make these little small changes. And it's going to take me 3, 4, 5 years. That's
your
the
life,
right
yep.
attitude.
Yep. There was a guy, and I had so much fan mail coming in from all of my books that I had to have help answering it all. And it was always financial, and it was always, but when this book came out, the mails that I got were just incredible. So I had a guy drive from Austin one time, he was a real estate developer, and he said, you need to know, I drove here to Dallas to meet you because you changed my life. And I said, what do you mean? And he said, I've never had a really tight relationship with my son. He's 28, he works at REI, and I'm a real estate developer. And I have to be at work. I mean, it's important. I make a lot. It's important that I not miss work. And my son's been asking me to do an REI trip for a long, long time. And he said, I always said, no, it's not my thing. I can't miss like 3 weeks of work and do this. And he said, I read your book and I felt that I needed to call him and I needed to tell him that I'm going to go on this trip with you. And so he said, he calls his 28-year-old son and he said, I want to do that Machu Picchu trip with you. I want to hike in. I want to do the trip. He said his son broke down and cried on the phone. Then he started calling him every week as they started planning this trip out. And he said, my relationship has totally transformed.
Right.
Our relationship.
The thing is, what's so crazy, you talk about this in the book too, is people are living on autopilot. And they're really, the terms that I use is they're allowing life to control them and they're not controlling their life. And for whatever reason, we think that our job is more important than spending time with our kids and our spouses and our family. And you've done some really just incredible things with your husband. And he was actually on last week. He was incredible.
This is a date. We went to Rome and we went to the opera. We believe in living out loud. So we had done we had gone to New York for a play, but this is us on our way to the opera. He had that tuxedo made while we were in Italy. I'm like, this is just an excuse. You can get a new tuxedo, buddy.
But you found somebody that has the same philosophy as you. And did that happen? I mean, did he have the same philosophy when you got married, or have you together started to form that in a deeper way?
I think we've formed it in a deeper way. We definitely synergize off of each other. But I remember very clearly telling him when we were dating that your life can change in a second. When that call came in the middle of the night that Jeff had died in a motorcycle accident, my life dramatically changed as you're trying to raise a child that doesn't have her dad. When Brandon's dad died, my life dramatically changed. And there are these moments where you say, if I could only go back. And you know what we always crave when we lose someone is we crave the ordinary days.
100%.
I just want to make pancakes and I want to sit down and I want to have a talk with Aunt Jerry. I just want to see how she's doing. And so I said to him, you have to be able to enjoy the ordinary days.
100%.
And I said, if you're up for that journey, then we can go on this journey together.
It's, and the two of you are doing some incredible things even together. Talk about some of the things that you're doing together, because I think it's amazing.
When we started dating, it was kind of funny because we decided we started this truth and love journey.
Right.
And as we started dating, we literally thought we should make videos of
Mm-hmm.
this stuff. And we made jokes at the time because we didn't know each other that well. And we thought these are going to be really funny to watch after we break up, because they were so vulnerable and so real.
Right.
Is we just decided that in this Facebook world, we have lost the ability to appreciate people for who they really are, for what's inside of them, and how do we see past all of the skin and all of what's on the outside. And so we started doing these videos, and they're on Facebook. We have done several series, and they went crazy on social media. And I'm sure they were just like, these people are insane.
Well, you were talking truth. You were talking truth, and people can identify that because so many times people put a mask on and they don't want to be authentic because they're scared. But in reality, what draws us closer to one another is being real and being authentic and sharing your journey. And that's what you two have started to do. And
Yes,
I know
we have.
that you've impacted so many people's lives and so many couples' lives, but I can't even imagine the number of people's lives that you're going to change, that what the two of you are doing together.
So we've done the videos. We're now writing a book called The Truth and Love Journey. We're about halfway through it. It has been just such a transformational journey. We did a Bible study for a while, and it is a blast. I mean, it is really, truly something we didn't expect. It just kind of came our way.
Right. It's just kind of rolled out.
It rolled out.
So the interesting thing, when we had Vince on the show last week, he's got a book that really talks about the inner pain and the inner wounds that we all have, because we all have them. Okay. whether you have realized it or not, and whether you want to talk about it yet or not, we all have them. And it's those inner wounds that really manifest themselves in our lives and impact our relationships. And at the end of the day, it's the relationships that we have with our spouses, with our friends, with our children that make our lives
Better or
worse.
difficult. Right,
Exactly.
right.
So you've got that book, and it again, it's a very easy read, and he tells. I've gotten so much feedback from that show. They're like, "Oh my gosh, Jen's incredible." But you really have to bear all, I believe, to get to the next level.
We've spoken together at conferences, and a lot of times we talk about fuel or fire. And we talk about the fact that the stuff that comes into our life, we can take two paths from it. It can either burn us up and leave us charred and broken. And he talks about kind of how do you get past the shame and forgive yourself and allow yourself to move forward and develop a life. And then, or do you use it as fuel to fuel yourself into your purpose and your destiny and,
Right.
and things that only you understand?
Oh, one of the things I say all the time is, just like every person has their own fingerprint, we all have our own heart print and our own soul print, because to your point, even though people have experienced similar things, nobody's exactly like you are. And so the way that you are going to share that with the world and help this world be a better place, it's different than how somebody else would.
Absolutely.
And it really does, you understand the importance that you have. I mean, each and every one of us has such a special calling on this earth, and in order to do it, you've got to get into action.
Did you ever read that book, A Million Miles in 1,000 Years or
No.
something like that? Oh my gosh. So
I've
there's-
gotta read it.
There is a book about a guy who, because of something he'd done in life, Hollywood people come in and they're going to write a story about his life. And this was impactful to me as well when I was reading this. And as he's telling them about their life, they're trying to one up it because it's kind of boring parts of it. So he's like, I love cars or bicycles.
Right.
And they're like, well, do you ride one? And he said, no, I just love bicycles. So in the movie out of his life, he doesn't just love bikes, he's riding them, right? And everything they're doing, they're one-upping his life because it's so boring. That stuck with me. And I literally think sometimes when I'm sitting on my couch and we're looking, what are we going to do tomorrow? I'm like, well, how could we one-up this? Like, how could we movify this moment in our life so that we wouldn't bore people to death if they're watching it in a movie?
But that's what it's really all about. One of your quotes in your book, you've got some incredible quotes, but one of them I pulled out because I just think it's so impactful. And you said, we let the noise of the world drown out the whispers of our hearts. And I think that's the thing is I think there's so much noise in the world, and every single one of us has whispers of our hearts of, we should write a book, or we should change jobs, or I'm not happy with the way I look, or I'm not happy with the people that I'm associating with. And there's all these little whispers, but we allow the big noise in the world to drown out and those are our clues. Those are I call them breadcrumbs.
Yep.
Those are the God winks, and we
Leading
just
us.
right, and we don't listen to them.
Well, I found I was, I've worked in corporate for so many years that I thought, if we're going to do a project, even if you and I were going to do a project together, we would write a project plan.
Right.
We would map it out. It could be the tiniest little project. Like we could be putting out an event, a social media event. We would have 32 steps. You would know what you're going to do. I would know what I'm going to do. We'd know by what date. We would spend hours planning that 1 4-hour event.
Right.
We would put it on social media. We would know how we were going to message it, right? I mean, we do this all the time.
That's exactly
but
right.
What hit me that day when I was laying in bed is we don't plan out our lives. We don't have management retreats with ourselves, which I do
Right,
now once a year.
right,
I have a
right.
management retreat with myself. And actually, Vince and I have started what we call adventure vacationing. So we hiked 100 miles of the Annapurna circuit. And on these trips, we kind of go through, it's almost like a management retreat. How do you think we're doing with this? How do you think, for our retirement home, how is that doing? How's our savings doing? What are we missing that we should be thinking about that we're not planning for?
Exactly. And that's being in corporate America. My master's degree is in training and development, and I am a planner. And same thing that, you're in corporate America and you're planning. Every October you're planning. And I did the same thing where I decided, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start planning my life that way. So every October I have a retreat. I go down to Mexico. Now, after talking to you on Friday, my husband are like, we need to go to Thailand. We need to, forget Mexico. Let's go somewhere bigger and let's get those great massages. And
I had a couple bosses where they were like, you are not allowed to talk to our wives. You cost me way too much money on vacations.
But it really is. You've got to and I think you said this in the book where if you added up all the time that we personally are putting into planning in our work life, and we're planning somebody else's job, and you compared it to what you're planning for yourself, it's ridiculous. And when you're like, hello, I care about myself more than I care about this job or somebody else's company. It's a complete change of philosophy.
It's a mind. It's almost like a mind meld. As you're like, what? If
right.
you think about it, it almost upsets you at first. And I always tell people, you show me your calendar and I'll tell you where your priorities are.
Exactly.
And if there's no time in there where you're planning the life you want to live, then I will tell you without even meeting you. I can tell if someone's happy or not.
Right.
If you showed me their calendar.
Exactly.
And I went through their calendar line item by line item, I could tell you whether or not they're content with the life they're living.
Because at the end of the day, we only have one life to live. And what you do with it is going to bring you that happiness and that fulfillment and that satisfaction. And I'm telling you, for me, I think it really started probably about 15 years ago, to your point. And where I am now, had I not made those decisions, had I not woken up the same way that you did, But I know there's so many other people that are out there
In the
that
same exact spot.
exact same
And you know,
spot.
when you first think about what you want to do, it sounds crazy.
It does.
It does. So I was well into my career, and I remember thinking I wanted to have a talk show. And I was a corporate executive. I worked as an SVP for a long, long time. And I remember thinking, this is so crazy because there is no way I can walk into kind of the environments I had worked in, which were very structured, corporate, Fortune 500, and, you know, and say, hey, I'm going to have a talk show.
Right. You're like,
But I thought, you know, you don't rule anything out when you're in the
No.
dreaming phase. You write down what you want to do. And when I wrote down in Live Your Dreams that I wanted to have a talk show, I did not have a talk show. It
Right.
was so
You're like,
far,
hello.
so far off the radar that when Grant Cardone, you know, when he called my publicist and we had the whole conversation and I flew to Miami and got that first talk show, the 3 Days to a Raise, I didn't believe it. I was literally, I saw the notification. My publicist didn't call me. I saw it on Twitter. I saw the notification on Twitter, went out to the whole world. I was like,
You're like,
oh,
oh.
look, this girl named, wait,
Hold
that's
on, that's
me.
I love
Look,
it.
I have a talk show.
But you know, it's amazing the power that comes with writing things down. There's an energy, and once you start living your life this way, you'll never stop.
You will not want to go back.
You will never
You will
stop.
not want to go back.
You know, so there's a couple of things that we do in our podcast, and one of them is Ask Jens. And what I do is people will send me questions, they'll ask me questions, and this question goes perfectly with what we're talking about. And the Ask Jens question today, because I've got a great answer for you, is what's the first thing you should do to begin living your dreams?
That's a good one.
Number one is get into action. And whether it is reading a book, whether it's surrounding yourself with like-minded people, whether it's going to an event, whether it is sitting down and writing things out, whatever it is, you've got to get into action. And I'm going to say, this is going to become one of my all-time favorite go-to books,
Aw,
Bethany.
that's so nice.
No, I'm not kidding you.
Did you love the How to Motivate Yourself?
I
Have you got to that yet?
I haven't got to that
Oh my
point
gosh, I
yet.
could not motivate myself. I was a busy working mom with 3 kids and you know, I was overweight and I couldn't motivate myself. I'd go to the gym. It was terribly depressing. That's why I started walking. I'd go to the gym. There'd be these cute little butts, you know, in front of me on the workout
like,
machines.
"Get
I was
'em
like,
off."
oh, get
Yeah,
out of here.
Get out of here.
So literally to motivate myself, because I love coffee.
Mm-hmm.
I am a coffee addict through and through. Is I thought if I didn't let myself have coffee till I did that 10-minute walk, oh, you know.
That's one of the things
You know I would have my...
You know, okay, so I haven't got to that point, but that's exactly one of the things I do is the things I don't want to do, I reward myself with
I
the
do
things
too.
I do want to do.
Absolutely. Doing my taxes every year, that was luckily, Vince hired someone to do my taxes for me since we got together. God bless you, Vince. I just want to say that. But I literally would give myself
Right,
a
a bonus,
blouse.
yeah.
I'd get a new blouse if I could
But you-
finish those taxes.
But you have to do that because that's exactly what I do. I'm
She would kill me if I said that, but I know she doesn't watch my social media. But my daughter, when she was young, when she was
Yes.
really young, she used to smoke.
Uh-huh.
And the only thing that motivated her was money because she was a starving student.
Of
and
course.
I told her, I said, I'm going to ask your friends, I'm going to check up on you, but I will pay you $10 a day. I can't remember if it was a month or 2 months.
Right.
I don't remember, if you stop smoking.
Oh.
And she wanted to shop so bad. And I was calling her girlfriends
Hey,
going,
listen.
if I catch her cheating, she did. She's never smoked since.
well, and I'm okay.
She was young.
Listen, I'm okay with that, Bethany. I know if you're motivated by money, I mean that is a great
She was
motivator.
starving. She was starving
So-
student.
Well, another one of our segments that we do, and I know that you're going to appreciate this, is I say laughter is the best medicine.
It is.
And that is one of the things I love about you, Bethany. I actually met Bethany through a mutual friend, Tammy Kling, and
Thank you, Tammy.
Yes,
not
thank
only
you
does
so
Tammy,
much.
not only do I owe her for introducing me to Vince.
Yes, but we were actually judges at the TEDx
Mm-hmm.
talks. And one of the things, and you know, don't you love it when people tell you what is memorable about you?
Mm-hmm.
So I am looking at Bethany. She's beautiful. She's larger than life. You've got this great energy, but it was your laugh. I remember I was listening and you were laughing, and I loved your laugh because laughter is the best medicine.
It is.
One of the things when you say every day can be amazing, all right, the laughs where you are belly laughing, you are crying, laughing so hard. I strive for that every day. And so people laughing and people's laughs, I'm just drawn to that. And you probably told 3 or 4 stories that day and you were just laughing. And I said,
No, that's the terrible part is I can laugh at my own jokes.
but I was like, I love this woman. I love this woman.
No one has to tell a
Right.
joke.
But because people need to laugh, and the scientific improvements and the benefits of laughing.
What it does for you
It's
is
incredible.
amazing. But people have lost the ability to belly laugh. To
Yes.
I actually did a video where I just laughed for a couple of minutes. It made people feel so uncomfortable.
Right.
They said, that looks like it's so hard. I was like, no, are you kidding? Once I can, if I want to cry and I start laughing, I feel better.
Exactly.
I got in a fight with a guy at work one time, and good old Kevin. Thanks, Kevin. I do remember this. He was like, I don't know, it was, you know how guys get on a tirade. He's like, you didn't do this right, and you don't do this right, and you didn't do this right, and you're not funny. And he had this big
And
one.
you just-
And I said, I'm not funny?
And you were probably dying
what are you
laughing.
talking
You're
about?
Like, you got the wrong person, because I'm hysterical. Just laugh. Just get that energy out. Laugh. Know the people in your life that make you laugh, and surround yourself with great people like Bethany Williams and your amazing husband. And I'm telling you, to close up, just from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for sharing your journey, not just with me, but with so many people. And I can't tell you, this is the beginning of something huge for me to associate with somebody so great like you.
Oh, thank you.
Thank
Jen.
you so much. And for each and every one of you, I am going to be sharing with you more information about an event that we put on every year. It is May 4th this year. It is my signature event. And the overarching goal is creating winning life teams. And I'm telling you, Bethany Williams, her husband, Vince Nelson, Tammy Kling, Sandra and Kim Yancey, so many people here locally. These are people that you want on your life team because you can't succeed alone. So we are going to be sharing more information about that. Please join us next Monday, 3 p.m. Central. Until we meet again, be big, be bold, and most importantly, be you.